Welcome back to the I Am Passionate podcast. It's your host, Jaren Smith, and I hope you all are doing well. So, for today's episode, I messed with the audio a little bit. I feel like, some of my recent episodes, I feel like I'm coming off as a little too loud, and I know that there's things that I can do to, improve the quality of my podcast. And today I'm taking my first step. Essentially, I tested all the different audio features that I could, and to me at least, this audio sounds the best. Um, I feel like it sounds the clearest. I also lowered the volume so I don't come off as loud. Yes, I normally edit the how loud I'm speaking because I've been told my entire life that I speak pretty loudly sometimes. But for today's episode, I'm going to be talking about pretty much, the MLB All-Star game, All-Star weekend. I know the All Star game was yesterday. I kind of just wanted to take an additional day to kind of give, all my thoughts. Pretty sure the home run derby was on Monday. Regardless, it was a couple of days ago. And so this year being my first year ever truly watching, both. And I just want to say I enjoy it. Like when watching the home run derby at first, I kind of was thinking like I'm gonna see people like in the first round. I thought I was gonna see people hitting, like 15 home runs, but like I know hitting a home run in general is very difficult, whether it's from, like a normal game or something like this, like during, like the home run derby, specifically in the first round, like the sideline reporters talking to the players, like the nervousness behind it, like that was kind of talked about a lot, which I was surprised. So like kind of after watching like the first two people go, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not gonna see a crazy number of home runs. Like I feel like even seeing 13 was kind of crazy. Um, but my first question for you all, because I know that this is my journey of becoming, just let's just say like an average fan to go from casual to an average fan. But for those of you who watch more baseball than I do, let me know if there's any players that you think were snubbed, maybe any players that you thought like, dang, why were they there? I truly cannot answer that question only because for most of this baseball season so far, I've strictly watched, Cubs and Sox games. So like I can't really comment on the Phillies, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays. I can't really comment on them because like I've been watching the games that I have easier access to. But talking about, the home run derby, another thought like I had early on is that I honestly thought that like if I was to go in person, I honestly did like before even seeing like the verse, I'm like, am I gonna like enjoy this? Because like I kind of thought like seeing like the All Star game would be more enjoyable, but no, I think if I ever had the chance to go to a home run derby, I definitely would take it. Like, don't get me wrong, even if I didn't enjoy it, I still would take the opportunity because like sometimes, hey, you might only experience it once, and that might be all you need. But I actually think it was a lot of fun, and like I feel like the announcers were really, really getting into it with certain players. Like, like my friend Kevin had basically been saying that like a lot of baseball announcers, well, maybe not a lot, but there are certain baseball announcers that are like really, really good because like me and Kevin talk a lot about Gus Johnson in college football. He does like a lot of Ohio State games. He used to be in the NFL, but I'm pretty sure now he just does college. Um, but yeah, I feel like the announcers they were really getting into it. I feel like I could really tell they were having a lot of fun with it. Um, I definitely also think the home run derby is a great concept. I say that as I would much rather watch the home run derby than watch NFL players play dodgeball or tic tac toe. Much would rather that. And so like maybe this is a hot take, but between baseball, the NBA, and the NFL, I think baseball has the better like All Star Weekend festivities or Pro Bowl, whatever. Basically, the NFL and NBA equivalent to like the All Star Weekend. I think baseball's got the best one. I think for me, like the Pro Bowl has just gotten worse consistently. Like, there's nothing wrong with flag football. I just think the Pro Bowl, like when I was a kid, like when I was like honestly the most memorable Pro Bowl to me was I believe the year where they first like two Hall of Famers essentially drafted the teams and playing in Hawaii. I want to say Ray Lewis was a captain the first year. This was like the year after he retired. I don't remember who he would. I think maybe Jerry Rice he would have gone up against. I don't remember exactly who the captains were, but that system was only for like a couple of years. The NBA, really, if I'm being honest, I feel like most people will probably say that one of the best like NBA All Star weekends would have been 2016 with the crazy dunk contest between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. That All Star game, was pretty competitive if I remember correctly. And plus, that would have been Kobe's and I believe Dirk's last All Star game. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments down below. But football, yeah, nah, I pretty much kind of stopped like I'll see the clips on social media just because the NFL still going to advertise it. They had a few years where they went back to the AFC and NFC, which I didn't think was bad. I just think that like the physical game itself, like you can tell in the NFL that the players just don't really care about the Pro Bowl as much as they would have in the past. And I still think if I had to say what clip of like what play in the NFL Pro Bowl that like is easily most memorable to me, I'm gonna say it was when Sean Taylor, rest in peace, um, basically the AFC went for a fake punt, and he just like trucked, like he basically like ran through the pause, like the punter who was going through the fake punt, which again that was just probably one of the biggest hits I've seen in football, and that was in the Pro Bowl. But enough about that. Um, but yeah, like in the home run derby, Kansas City's Jack Caglione, I believe that's how you say it. I feel like the announcers were getting really excited, when he was up. Same for Philly's Kyle Schwarber. It's just that kind of like listening to their voices and kind of just seeing the excitement that they had. I feel like it was at like its highest for those two players, and also even for just like the winner, Jordan Walker. I feel like the announcers I feel like, they were pretty like reactive. They seemed excited, kind of talking about, like him and his performance. Um, but yeah, no, if I had to kind of give, the home run derby an overall rating, I would say I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Um, at first I was thinking that I'm going to see crazy numbers, even though that it is very, very hard to even just hit a pitch, with professional, players, just considering how fast like the average pitch is. But, kind of seeing how it worked, I'm like, you know what? It makes sense seeing, the 10, 11 home runs or, kind of fewer. But overall rating for the home run derby, I'm gonna say 9 out of 10. I can't compare, this year's, All Star festivities to previous years because this is the first year of me watching it. Um, I also really like how it's like a bracket style after the first round. If I had to say the only kind of equivalent that I could give it would maybe be like the 3 point contest. Um, and even then, I have noticed in recent years where like they're actively changing like the 3 point contest. Which again I like the changes because there was a couple years ago where on the WNBA, Sabrina Ionescu, I think, teamed up with Steph Curry. I forgot who they were like competing against, but I think it was cool kind of combining the WNBA and NBA into like the NBA's All-Star game. Oh, well, All-Star festivities. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, no, I think the ending of it, Jordan Walker, defeating, Kyle Schwarber. I think Jordan Walker like in his last like let's just say 5 hits, I'm pretty sure like all of them were home runs. But regardless, it was really, really close. So like I definitely think if you were one of the people who were able to go experience that live, I definitely think that like it was probably like a great, great experience. So like if I ever had like let's just say like I don't know how common it is for like in baseball for like the All-Star festivities to be in Chicago, but if I have the chance to go to I definitely would experience it once because thinking about it, um I know the Pro Bowl would never for football would never be at Soldier Field, even though that there's all the talks of the Bears switching stadiums or getting a new stadium. Um, but regardless, I don't ever see it being in at the Chicago Bears stadium. Basketball, I could probably see like the All Star Weekend being at the United Center, but I would probably imagine that Chicago hosting like the All Star festivities for baseball probably be more common. But if I had the chance to see whether it's the All Star game or the Home Run Derby, I think I would gladly take it if it comes to Chicago. I really, really would. Now for the All Star game, um, again, like I have reiterated, during my journey so far, I feel like as somebody who's mostly watched Cubs and Sox games, I feel like this game was kind of boring. But like it wasn't boring just from like everyone was doing terrible. I feel like the American League pitchers were just going crazy, and like even when like one of the National League people at bat got a hit, I feel like it was it wasn't like a crazy hit. It was something that was short, maybe like a pop up toward third base, or maybe like a easier to field ground ball, which getting kind of quick and easy outs. Um, but yeah, like most almost all of the scoring except for like one hit late, which I think it was Vargas on the Sox who hit a home run. The only like home run of the game. Um, all three of the players who scored in the first inning for the American League were Yankees players. Um, in which the MVP was given to Cody Bellinger because I believe he had a basically his hit brought in started kind of the runs, started the momentum for the American League early in the game. Um, as I was watching it at first, I'm like, is it gonna go to a pitcher? Because like outside of that first inning, the game was pretty much just kind of felt like a massive like pitcher's duel. That's the term I hear at work all the time, and I tend to use it when I'm like at work, but that's a story for a different day. Um, but I think seeing like the pitching on both sides, seeing like um some of like the plays like that were made in the outfield. I definitely think it was enjoyable for that perspective, and like I don't think it was fair of me to expect like higher scoring because like if this is the NFL, you're not going to see really much effort. You're going to see high scoring game in a Pro Bowl. NBA with how they've changed, their All Star game, you're going to see high scoring in that. So like, it's refreshing to see like a lot of defense in an All Star game. I feel like that's very, very refreshing. Now, I'm not sure if this is something that like all of the players who played, if they're like giving it their all or if they're kind of like letting up a little bit. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if like maybe there were moments where like, all right, yeah, they're like, yeah, let me like lean up in my chair. Cause like I guess if I'm thinking of me, like don't get me wrong, I'm always the type of person who I want to do my best in everything that I do. But if I was a professional baseball player, if I was to go all out in this, let's just say if I got hurt, and plus there was a player who got hit in this game, which I remember he ended up being fine. But like if I had like a crazy season ending injury, and then like let's just say if the team I'm on is like one of the better teams, if my injury in the All Star game cost a chance at a World Series, like that would haunt me specifically. The same kind of goes for other sports. Like if I kind of go all out in the Pro Bowl and have an injury, which player safety in sports these days is definitely more prevalent to when like I was younger. And for anyone new listening, I'm only 24, so like I'm not saying this like I think for my entire life, at least for football, the Pro Bowl has been like before the Super Bowl. Maybe like the first, like maybe when I was like really little, maybe it was like after, because like I've heard stories from my dad that like the Pro Bowl used to be after the Super Bowl, so like everyone could participate. But now you see people who tend to make it to the Super Bowl, they definitely opt out, or like players who maybe that late in the season, if they're injured, they tend to opt out. So the Pro Bowl in the NFL just seems like a big joke to me. But the All Star game itself for baseball, if I kind of had to give it a rating out of a 1 to 10, mm, I think I'm gonna give it a 7. Um, I appreciated all the defense. I guess I just would have liked to see it be a little closer. Like if the final score was like 4-2, I might have like raised my scoring up a little bit. But like I said, I definitely do appreciate like all the defense that was played, like in this game because like I feel like all-star games tend to not have a lot of defense in them. Um, so if I had to pick, like let's just say if I won a contest to experience either, the NFL's Pro Bowl festivities, the NBA's All-Star Weekend, or baseball, I think right now I think I'd have to give the nod to baseball. Um, like even like during the home run derby, seeing like the average fans catch home runs, like those stands were packed. It's genuinely seemed like a lot of people were like having fun, and it's not to say that they don't during like the NBA or like All Star Weekend or like even like the NFL Pro Bowl games, but like I don't know, I feel like like everything about the home run derby and even the All-Star game, I feel like just it was just a great environment for everyone, whether it be through the players or whether it be through you know um the fans. So like, let me know if that's a naive perspective coming from somebody who's taking this year to try to get more into baseball, because I would imagine for maybe more regular fans, maybe they didn't even watch the entire game, which like I would not blame you if you turned it off pretty much like by the fourth inning. In which I get it, even by that point, there's a lot of games still left to play. But um, so I'm gonna give my hopes for the rest of this season for baseball, and then I'm gonna call it, because my baseball episodes, I tend to try to keep them around anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, not out of fear of making an episode too long. It's just I feel like 15 to 30 minutes is perfect for me, not even just with how I speak. It's just that like I know for football I can ramble on and make an episode by myself that's closer to 40 minutes. Baseball, I'm definitely not at that point yet. The goal for baseball is by this time next year I can make longer episodes about me speaking about baseball. And so I think the first goal of the second half of the season for baseball is going to be to make a bigger effort to watch more games that aren't Sox or Cubs. Um, there are like the Dodgers, for example, which they're a good team. I almost said the Knicks, the Yankees, watching them, just watching more teams, whether it be the good or bad teams, doesn't matter. Just trying to watch more, because like in both the home run derby and like the All-Star game, I probably only knew about, maybe I could probably less than 10 players. I think that's a fair number to say. Yeah, I probably barely knew 10. Um, but the other goal that I definitely would say I would have would be to go to the Crosstown Classic, basically when the Cubs play the Sox, I think in August. So it's in about a month. The day of this recording, it is July 15th. Um, but I definitely would say, watching, experiencing that live in person, that would be awesome. Um, I think that would make also for a great podcast episode. And also to kind of reiterate about my watching more games that aren't Sox or Cubs, the other reason as to why I want to watch, more teams is because in football, like literally on a Sunday, I will literally watch every game. It could be between two teams that are 0 and 15. I'll still watch it. Um, so like I feel like in baseball, one of the best ways for me to learn more about other teams is to just watch every game that I can. Does not matter how good the teams are. Of course, you want to watch, a good baseball game. You want to watch a good football game. You want to watch a good basketball game. But I think for someone like me right now who's just trying to get into the sport a little bit more, I think it's important to watch every game that I can. So that way I feel like I'd learn more about the players. I would truly know like, okay, this player is a top 10 player. Oh, this player, this rookie is going crazy right now. So like that is kind of why I was like, every baseball game that I have the chance to watch, I'm going to do my best to try to watch. But let me know your thoughts down below on the All-Star game and their festivities, for this year. Let me know if you think that it was good this year, or if last year or previous years were better. Also something that I am going to try to do, especially because this episode is on the shorter side. I'm definitely going to post a video on Instagram promoting this episode, and I'm going to try to post a clip on maybe on TikTok just to see if that draws in some more viewers. But I just want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the I Am Passionate podcast. It's your host, Jaren Smith, and I'll catch you all in the next episode.